She's my main thing. She makes me feel alright. She makes my heart sing. And when I'm feeling low, she comes as no surprise. She wakes me up with a love and takes me to paradise. You tell me, do you think you love me, Mary Jane? Don't you play no game. I love you just the same. I'm in love with Mary Jane. She's my main thing. She makes me feel alright and she makes my heart sing.
Hello, viewers. It's James Kalm, your half-assed reporter, and we are down on the Lower East Side on a miserable, foggy Sunday afternoon. We're gonna run in here to Gavin Brown's Enterprise, and I'm gonna try to get some pictures of an exhibition by an artist named Brian Belott. Well, I didn't know what to expect. You can go back in the Kalm report probably about 14 years ago and see an exhibition of Brian's that we caught at Canada, maybe one of his first shows that he ever had in New York. Well, Brian is a funny guy, and I think he's also got some kind of a background in music or the music industry. I think maybe his father was a record producer. This is called Can Opener Keyboard, and I was informed by the lady at the desk that I could actually play this. Okay, I guess each one of these has maybe a different sound. I don't know. It gets into the Spike Jones and John Cage version of music. Oh, this is aptly titled. This is Shopping for Color. Temper on Post-it notes. 28 1/4 by 31 3/8. Signed on Verso. Okay, so each one of these little segments has got a shopping cart. And, well, it's rare that you get someone that's using tempera with this kind of thick impasto. And, okay, he's not just going to leave it there, he's going to throw some glitter on, too. Now, there's a lot of smaller pieces in the show, so we're not going to have a chance to give you the names of all of them. Here's a selection of his collage books, and one of the things I like about Brian is that he's got a very inventive use of kind of found materials, and I think he's got a very good color sense. Okay. So he's got looks like pieces of Naugahyde, faux suede, other kinds of things. Also, I was noticing that seems like one of the themes in this show is the idea of high tech. So, like the adding machine, or the calculator, but it's been excavated from something from the Stone Age, maybe from the Flintstones. It's like Barney Rubble's TV remote, and he's probably got about, I don't know, maybe a dozen of these, and they're on the pedestals. But even with this kind of simple sculptural object, you can see that he's got a certain sensibility about picking the colors for the rocks and the size and shape. This piece is untitled, 2016 mixed media work. Well, most of these are untitled. Uh-oh. I think there must be a sensor here that tells it when somebody's standing in front of it. Okay. And yeah, take note of this section over here that's burned. Okay, now that recalls work by Yves Klein, where he used a blowtorch, and also Jean Moreau did a series of burned pieces. I like Brian's aesthetic of the kind of the crappiness of things. It's got little, looks like garlic heads in there. It's kind of grungy patina. And again, we've got our kind of odd cell phone. So we've got an interesting selection of sketches. These are all mustered on burnt paper. Okay, well, I wonder if that's the Dijon mustard or just regular brown mustard. These are all about 12 or 14 inches by 8 or 10 inches. Okay, I'd love him to squirt his mustard on my hamburgers. I'm a big mustard fan. Gotta have some horseradish too. Okay, so this is another example of his kind of punchy color things and his clever, whimsical use of materials. I like the way the rope, it's kind of a fill in for a line. And yeah, I like the fluorescent color. This is untitled Puff, 23 by 21.5 inches. This is titled Proto-Puff. Well, as I've talked to Brian and got to know him a little bit over the years, I found out that he worked for Donald Batchelor for quite a while, and well, I've known Don for 30 some odd years. Well, both Brian and I are fans of Don and Don's work, and Don's been a very, very generous mentor to a lot of people. This is Tondo Puff, mixed media. Now, I don't know, I'm looking at this and I'm thinking this looks a little dingy. There's some dark soot or dust that he's put on these. I'm wondering if he makes these somewhere and then puts them out and lets them accumulate some patina. Also, this the way that he's blobbing on these clumps of color puts me in mind of a fantastic Dutch-Belgian artist named Bram Bogart. He kind of was part of the group around Cobra, but was never really in Cobra, but used a lot of paint, and quite a fantastic painter. I think he passed away a couple of years ago. Untitled Fan Puff, mixed media. Okay, well, I've been pedaling the bike with my raincoat zipped up, so I'm kind of damp. This feels good. Yeah, as I said, Brian is a funny guy, amusing guy, very charming, very urbane, and even with all that, he does have a certain kind of essential approach to painting. This piece is 83 by 73 by 8.5 inches thick. Got some things that are probably the closest he gets to straight ahead painting. It's titled Patty. Oil on canvas board, 10 by 8 inches. This is Patty 99. Oil on canvas. Okay, so yeah. Actually painted in 1997, so this has been sitting around curing for 20 years, and I like the puckering. Untitled Fan Piece, 2016, 85 by 75 by 5 inches. And again, another fan, which also makes me think of, he's referencing Robert Rauschenberg. As I was saying, he's interesting the way he's kind of using these pieces of yarn or string or twine as effigies of brush strokes. And it's interesting the way they hold the color. And again, we got our bizarre little Stone Age cell phone stuck in there. Okay, this is our last look here. This is titled Rotary. And again, I'd love to see something like this blown up to 5 by 4 feet. James Kalm reporting on Brian Belott here at Gavin Brown's Enterprise, 291 Grand Street on the Lower East Side. I'm gonna roll on and try to capture a little more art. Takes me the perfect time. trailed around the corner and up the street on Forsyth Street. We're going to run into one of our favorite little galleries. Steven Harvey Fine Arts Projects. We're going to look at an exhibition brought by Jane Dickson. And the title of Jane's show is Witness. Well, I hate to start my little chats saying things like this because some ladies don't want to reveal their age, but I've been a fan of Jane's work for, well, let's just say since the late 70s, about the time I arrived in New York. And, well, this show is all featuring views of things that were happening around her studio back in the late 70s, early 80s at Times Square. This piece is titled Study for Terminal Bar, 1979. And, well, when I first came to New York, I lived about, well, maybe 10 blocks northwest of here, up in Hell's Kitchen. And so if I was ever suffering from painter's block or just feeling bored, I would take a stroll down to Times Square and go see a movie. This is titled Dreams, Adult Bar, 1985, oil stick on red paper. Anyway, Jane and her husband, the filmmaker Charles Ahern, has had studios down there right near the Port Authority in Times Square. This is a study for white-haired girl. And, well, it was quite a neighborhood. There was a lot of action. I think there's a TV series with James Franco titled, was it The Deuce? And they were sort of dealing with what was happening there. So there were a lot of peep shows, XXX men's bookstores, and just regular kind of crappy movie theaters, a whole line of lousy movie theaters where you could go in and spend about $2 and watch 3 or 4 horror movies or something. This is titled Mardi Gras 8th Avenue, 1983. Oil stick on canvas. And I think one of the things that got Jane some attention was her use of the black grounds, and she liked to use a kind of a rough, nubby surface that she would then sort of scumble in her colors on. It's titled Subway Stairs 1, oil stick on canvas. And I think maybe we'll even get a chance to see one or two of her paintings where she's working on black sandpaper, or emery paper. And this one, I think she's gone in with her oil stick and maybe used some solvents to treat it more like oil paint. So I guess she was hanging out there at Times Square at night, watching the action from maybe one of the higher floors in her studio building. So I said I used to go down there and hang out. And, well, it was this tough and scary neighborhood. But there were a lot of interesting people there, and I think there was actually, when I came, there was a penny arcade on the corner of maybe 8th Avenue and 42nd Street, maybe it was 9th Avenue. And that Penny Arcade was a real classic landmark, and even Deanna Arbus had done a series of photographs dealing with that, and that's all gone now. So this is oil on canvas, 42 by 19. And yeah, I like the way that Jane uses the lights. It's almost like reverse chiaroscuro. She's using the lights to carve away the forms on these shadowy figures. This is probably the largest piece in the show. This is Witness Reading in Bed, 1991. Now, there were also a lot of SRO hotels. That's single room occupancy, residences. Okay, there's also a kind of Edward Hopper kind of quotidian tragic sense to this. And yeah, so it's interesting the way that the top of the figure is cropped out with that curtain. And her drawings are very nice. Cops, 1979, chalk on paper, 15 by 19. You know, they're almost like little snapshots, maybe Polaroids, and she's reduced everything down to just these blotches of white and light colors. It's titled Support, 1980, oil stick on paper, 20 by 16. This is a wonderful piece. Study for Hotel Girl, 1981. It's just chalk on paper. But a very, very poignant scene. And a sense of longing, kind of the loneliness of night in the city. Okay, we'll run in the back and see what's going on back there. This is Live Girls XXII, 1992. Okay, now this is an example of what I was talking about with the oil stick on sandpaper. And I think the backing, the mat that this is on is tar on panel. So Jane's got a very unique sense of materials. It's kind of brutal and industrial, but it has a nice color quality. Embossed monotype with hand coloring. This is pecuniary print number 6. Yeah, I went to a Picabia show, I guess, at the Museum of Modern Art about a year and a half ago, and Picabia was doing strange paintings that he would then put in the oven or do strange mixtures of water and oil to get strange things to happen on the surface. Live Girls, 6, 1992, oil stick and orange sandpaper mounted on wood. And I think we'll take our last looks here. This is Peep 4, oil and pumice on canvas. And this is 1993. You know, as I remember it, I was in a show with Jane out in Williamsburg in the late 90s, and at that point she was actually painting on AstroTurf. And I think I saw some work by her recently, maybe out at Valentine in Bushwick, where she was doing paintings of Las Vegas casino scenes. This is 57 by 40. Okay, thank you. This is James Kalm reporting on Jane Dickson, witness.
I'm in love with Mary Jane.
Here at Steven Harvey Fine Art
She makes me feel alright.
on Forsyth Street.
And when I'm feeling low,
And now
she comes as though to
I'm
cry.
gonna try to slip into Freight+Volume, and we'll laugh our way through an exhibition by Paul Gagner, Holding Out for a Hero.
You tell me, do you think you love me, man?
Yes, well, I actually came by for the opening of this show. Maybe it was Friday. And, well, unfortunately, it was so packed that I could only get about 3 feet into the front room. But I liked what I saw, and decided I would make a point of coming back and making at least a cursory walkthrough and look at some of the work. Well, there's an incredible amount of work in this show, so we'll highlight some of the more eye-catching ones. I actually like this series that he's got going here. These are like faux book covers, and most of them are self-titled, so I think that's probably no skills, no ideas, become an artist. Well, I was in, like I said, on Thursday or Friday looking at the opening, Dark Arts. I think these are all 10 by 12 inches oil on canvas. And as I said, I like the work, and you can see that Paul is a pretty good technician, and he's also got a heck of a sense of humor. Do-it-yourself gravestones. Okay. I think this is kind of a sensibility that they've been featuring here at Freight+Volume for a while, and that is the use of text. You know, a lot of people think Freight+Volume is about like the moving freight, a freight train, and volume would be the amount of space that something is held, but actually the proprietor, Nick Lawrence's father, was in the publishing industry for years, and so this actually, the volume, it actually refers to a volume of literature, or the text. Here, pain handling activates my conceptual gag reflex. Okay. Probably a lot of these things are held over from conversations he's heard at openings, like the one he had last week. This is like a parody of the New York Times culture section. The Ambassador 2012, oil on canvas, 36 by 28 inches. You can have this for $3,400. Okay, so we were over in the back room at The Hole and saw some work by, I forget her name, first name would have, Ms. Larson, who was using confectioner's tubes to squirt out oil paint and build patterns not dissimilar from Paul's use here. Okay, so he's a very funny guy. Okay, so this makes fun of the faux haircuts. Let me read a little bit from the press release. Gagner's portrayals of the human form are rather incongruous and holding out for a hero oscillating from hyper-specific observations to freewheeling surreal variations of scale. In Hairscaping and Barbarian and His Barber, his fixation on the isolation of the hair's mountain landscape shaved into the back of the subject's head, a representation of the body with an uncertain energy, and so are his variations of scale and proportion. Abstraction as a Second Language, 2014, oil on canvas, 26 by 30. Well, as I said, I think that Paul has a very rich sense of humor, and it's a great way of making fun of some of the sacred cows of the art world, or some of the unreproachable theoretical frameworks that the local New York art scene has established. And he's kind of poking fun at a lot of that. This is A Personal Reminiscence, 2014, 26 by 30. Process of personal. But Paul still is very good at painting and not getting too carried away with a nice, pristine, slick finish. You know, and I think if someone was to say, oh, these are kind of illustrative, I would have to say that I think there's too much painting going on for them to really fit comfortably into that category. Started as a series of moves. Making sense of nonsense. So these are all featuring open books. Okay, we've got our cigar and our glass of whiskey. Buoyancy was lost, and everything became as lead. Gosh, is that a lead line of some poem? And yeah, I like the reference to the tabletop trompe l'oeil. Panini with Kelly, Baldessari, and Dix. Okay, so each one of these is giving us a little evidence in our building our narrative of his view of his own painterly legacy. And yeah, so I was talking about the dialectic between the illustrative and the painterly, and his little yellow squiggles there kind of prove that. run into the back and rush through. Self-delusion, the pathway to success. Okay. Let's see, that's probably about 14 by 12. This is titled Stoop Sail, oil on canvas 54 by 48. Stoop sail is a real common phenomenon out in Brooklyn. Okay, so Paul Gagner is a painter and sculptor living in Brooklyn, New York. He holds a BFA from the School of Visual Arts. Okay, we had a class of those students came by my studio last week, as well as an MFA from the City University of New York at Brooklyn College. Paul's work has been exhibited nationally and internationally, including Catherine Mulhern in Toronto, the Community in Paris, Hashimoto Contemporary in San Francisco, Halsey McKay Gallery in East Hampton, blah, 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 blah. Most recently, he was featured on the cover of an interview for the print magazine Art Maze Magazine. Okay, good. Way to go, Paul. That must be fortify your delicate ego. You know, they're also handing out these helium-filled balloons. Those here, yeah. Oops, you're pregnant. Occupational hazard, 2015 oil and canvas, 48 by 44. Okay, so, yeah. If you're a painter, you might expect to have a meteorite come through the skyline of your studio. Birth of an Idea, 2018. Looks like oil on paper. Finger painting at the museum, 2015. Pablo's Makeover. Yeah, Paul uses a very dry surface. This is Palm Reader. This would be a great example of the surrealistic variations in scale. Cheap Studio, 2017, 40 by 32. Okay, everybody's looking for a cheap studio. Can't find them. That's why everybody's moving upstate to Hudson, New York. 24-hour news cycles, 2016, oil on canvas. Well, I like the way that he's kind of scored the surface with these stripes and then painted over that. And as I said, I think he's got a nice sense for the material quality and the surfaces of the paint. The artist rearranged with pickle. Okay, so I'm getting kind of an echo or resonance from a Philip Guston here, but I think maybe Philip Guston is one of the most respected and influential artists in American painting in the last 50 years. And I think at this point he's kind of outstripped even Pollock. Barbarian and his barber. Well, I like the way that Paul is actually using the canvas and the way that he's cutting up his composition to add to the narrative. And yeah, he can be pretty articulate with his figuration when he wants to be. This is 48 by 44. The portable artist. Okay. And we have this all packed into our little velvet lined case. We can take it out and put it together whenever we need it. Paul's got a pretty good color sense too. I like his variations on the grays. Okay, this is our last piece. The artist has a receptacle. Yeah, again, I like the bold colors with the gray backgrounds. It's very nice. So we've been out on a foggy Sunday soggy sojourn, and we've taken looks at Brian Belott, Jane Dickson, and here at Freight+Volume, we're looking at Paul Gagner holding out for a hero. You can like this, share, subscribe, recommend it to your friends, and you can leave your thoughts, ideas, comments, criticisms, and reviews below. But as we always say at the end of these, join me, folks. Thank you, Kate.
Like I love you. Guys, I'll always love
The last stop on this train.
There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Hopefully the
Harry Mint?
Huh?
Say, Harry.
Yeah.
You're fresh, Harry. Thank you.
man. Appreciate
Thank you.